We're
Good
recording.
faith, good faith.
We're recording.
We're recording.
All right.
Secret House.
Secret House against. We're back for our third review of the day. Look at the back wall. Noname Book Club. Look at this. Caltrops Press. Look at this. The Sonic Cloth. Hit the like and subscribe. We really appreciate that. We're building up. We're close to unlocking superpowers.
Don't look at this. Fuck Max Verstappen. I hate that dude.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton, 44. Let's go.
Word life. Today, Tokyo-based hip-hop art and culture conversations and such. Today, me and Jed are here to discuss the new Nickelus F project called The Specimen, issue 000. 18 songs, 52 minutes, dropped last month. Nickelus F is an MC, songwriter, artist from Richmond, Virginia. He's a Hall of Fame champion on BET's Freestyle Friday. Worked with Early Drake. Got some incredible work with Lil Ugly Mane, Sean Kemp. What was it? Trick Dice.
Trick Dice.
Yeah. How do you know about Nickelus F?
I don't know. I've been a fan for a while. Trick Dice is one of my favorite albums, like full stop. Like, I love that record.
Word.
Just the two sides of avant-garde tapestry, just a wonderful approach to making an album, even, anti-streaming, revolutionary type music, and all of his other stuff he's put out is also dope. Stuck, great album.
Yeah.
Fucking Triflin, great album. Vice is great album. Big fan.
I actually I was hip to him kind of late. I was outside. I wasn't watching BET Freestyle Fridays like that. But my old podcast brother that I did Tokyo Mega Late Show with late put me on to PD when we first started doing our podcast way back in 2017. Nickelus F was one of his all-time favorite MCs, and I've really fucked with all the work since then. I went back and listened to a variety of his albums, a Lil Ugly Mane shit. Stuck in so many of those are just really beloved by me. In 2001 on Peter Rosenberg's album, he had a song with Fly Anakin, and I was just listening to that today like crazy. I got a little notification like your favorite songs from 2021, and that was like my sixth favorite song. I played that song on repeat so much. So I am a big fan of Nickelus F and have been since I was put onto him. I think he's like one of the more tremendous artists out there right now, and a unique artist at that. And I looks like I missed two of his projects, so like 2019
like thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I missed those, but I just
Goldmine Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah, I don't know if those are like old tracks re-released or whatever. But
they are. There's some stuff from there's some old freestyles and stuff on here. He took some time out because I know he has some kids and he like went back to school. He was working as like an exterminator or something, like very like working class type job type thing. And then after he kind of blew up, I think he wanted to take some time for himself. Took a hiatus from releasing music at least. I think he has like 2 kids. Went and did like a BA or something. Went back to school.
So is this his first real album since Stuck back in 2018 then?
I believe so.
Okay, so yeah, I'm kind of happy that those other albums were like throwback tracks because I didn't want to miss any of his newer work. Because for me, when I saw this album dropping, I was, as a fan of him, I was like, oh shit, finally. I've been anticipating and just waiting for new music from him. I listened to the Peter Rosenberg joint. I saw him on Top Shelf Premium with a dope freestyle, and he's just been really dope and an artist that I'm always looking forward to. So with this, I walked into this album extremely excited. Now, to be clear, this if you couldn't tell by the cover art and the album title, this is a comic book inspired concept album. And so it is quite different. It ended up being quite different than what I was kind of expecting across the board on almost every single level. But I'd really like to before I come up with a different part of my critique is like I think that this is really ambitious. I think this is a really ambitious project. I think that it was the voice acting that he implements on here is actually really well crafted, along with kind of the background noises they use to kind of
the soundscapes,
give you these.
Yes.
And it is a bit of a throwback to the 19 40s era, the shadow radio shows, radio dramas, and I think that all of that stuff is fairly well executed. In terms of the actual amount of music on this album is where I found myself being a little bit disappointed in the product. Not a little bit disappointed in the product. I was questioning the approach on this because it doesn't seem as though he was thinking this would have replay value.
Which I mean, concept albums do always run that risk, and I am a fan of concept albums in all genres of music. Whether that's, I don't know, Undone by the Roots or fucking Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta.
Prince Among Thieves by Prince Paul. Yeah. Vigilante Genesis by Blueprint and Aesop Rock, another comic book story. There's quite a few.
There's a lot of them. But yeah, I do not care for this album at all.
I kind of don't feel like it's an album. It feels like a single, like a project.
Yeah.
Because first off, I didn't do the math, but there feels like there's more skits on this album than there is actual music.
Yes.
And even the songs that are there have skits parts at the end of them, which take away from your replay value, because you want to play one of the dope songs, and it's like, oh, this beat is dope, his rhymes are dope on this, and then at the end you get like another
explaining
skit. Like Training Annex, dope beat,
great rhymes.
The beat switch is dope. A lot of the production choices of the old cartoony sounding things, like it sounds like some comic book shit, and that is very intentional and well crafted. But then you get to the end of the song, and it's just like, oh, there's more skit, and then following after, like so many parts of this album, it's like, oh, this is 3 minutes of narration. For a story that I don't think is necessarily executed all that well. I am a comic book head, and I don't mean that I like Marvel movies. And I got into comic books again when I started watching Marvel movies, or that I watched the X-Men cartoon when I was 7 years old or whatever. I literally still read comic books. I've been reading comic books my entire life and almost have never quit. And I'm a big fan of the art form. I think that a lot of times it is high art. It is tremendously incredible storytelling that cannot just be laid out on any other mediums. You can't turn the Watchmen comic book into the Watchmen movie and have it meet the same level of quality. And I believe that this is ambitious, but from a storytelling point of view, this is not a very compelling or interesting comic book story.
Exposition. The most frustrating thing about the skits for me is that so often the skit will establish something that the track does a perfectly good job of doing anyway. It will be like the first 2 tracks, they establish he came out of cryo sleep and he's kind of fucked up about it, but he now has superpowers, and that's dope. And then when the Specimen, when the rapping actually gets going on those first 2 tracks, he just establishes that he's come out of cryo sleep and that he's got superpowers and he's dope. I just generally feel like a lot of these skits don't really do much to establish things that the song doesn't already do in its own right.
I also feel like, in a way, a lot of the rapping on the songs doesn't have much to do with the story.
Sometimes they, which is especially galling on the last track, on the Baggington.
Okay, yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, you made a weed track, that's fine, and you can tell that it's like, okay, the villain's defeated. Sure. What are you gonna do to relax?
Yeah, nothing but winnings. Talk about rolling up weed and bitches.
Right.
Yeah, it's not really great.
Yeah, I think, my main issue with this record, and as a fan, I really don't want to just sound like I'm shitting on it. I want to articulate as clearly as I can.
I'm going to get into the shit that I like about it, but
why I care, why I like Nickelus F so much as an MC. But yeah, I just this album just left me very cold. Like the narrative, the overall narrative, the overarching narrative, really reminded me of like a movie that Snoop Dogg put out like maybe like 10 years ago called Boss Player, I think it was called.
Okay.
Where it's like,
I missed that hood classic.
The narrative is like Snoop like wakes up in the morning and then he like gets some head, and then he goes and like meets a dealer, and then the dealer is like, yo, I got something for you, and there's a chick, and he gets some head, and then he goes to another place and he like parties for a while, and then maybe he gets some head again, and then 2 Snoop Dogg songs play at the end, and like everyone's having a good time, the end. And it kind of feels like the narrative is just a framing device for playing a bunch of Snoop Dogg songs, but they also occupy more time than the actual meat, the actual musical substance of the record. I also just kind of feel like, yeah, the actual, I mean, I'm not a comic book guy. I don't know a great deal about comics or sort of visual graphic novels. Sorry, I don't read manga or anything either. But it's like, even on like Power Up, I think it is, you know, after the fight, like he loses, and then he's just like, oh, by the way, I'm actually Goku. And he just turns Super Saiyan, like, you know, his hair starts floating. He like summons an energy sword and cuts the woman's arm off. And then the track begins with her being like, my arm. And it's like, oh, okay, but you could have just started with that. We would have pieced it together. Like, you know, you powered up. That's dope.
We get the narration about the power up instead. And for a song called Power Up, the loop just goes on and on and on. You kind of expect a drop, like drums to come in or something of some type of crescendo. My biggest issue with this album is not really, while I could go on and say like, man, this fucking, you know, the comic book story is bad, or the songs don't make sense. Like, at the end of the day, I was just kind of hoping for some really dope Nickelus F moments and over dope beats. And there's that on here. Of that. Yeah, I like quite a few of these joints, like the Specimen.
Yes.
You know, he's like came out of the freezer, set the shit on fire. How they could allow. Better question is, how can they stop me? I got all these powers. The Training Annex joint is really dope too. He says, hey, yo, I'm basically a nerd with all these books I read yearly. They ask me how the shoes lace, and I explain string theory. My mind is a high-clarity diamond. I think clearly. I love that song. The beat and everything about it is dope. But if I want to repeat it, I got to listen to another, like, 30 seconds to a minute of skit at the end. Self-Savior, dope beat, dope raps. Xerxes is pretty good. But, like, Xerxes, it seems like it was just a moment, you know, he goes to a fucking like moon strip club, a moon lounge. And it's just like an excuse for him to do braggadocious raps about being at an ultra lounge or strip club. Heavy 808s, dope, fine. But the story takes away from the music to me too much on this album. I don't like it. I don't like how they like. I feel like there's not much replay value on this for me, which disappoints me, because the moments that I really do like and fuck with, I gotta fucking deal with more great voice acting that I don't really care about in a story that I don't really care about. Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I'm not going to talk much more shit. I think that's
everything I mean that's kind of where I'm at. I even like. There are bits of the narrative where, you know, they establish like, oh, you know, there's like a villainess called Scorn. Oh, hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. Cool.
Bet.
You got like the shrouded woman who, you know, he walks past and like lets her get assaulted, presumably. You know, they highlight she has her breasts out when he sees her.
Yeah. She got a titty out.
And I was expecting like it to turn around like, oh, she's actually Scorn, and that you would have this kind of, you know, great power, great responsibility turnaround moment where it's like, well, your failure to act positively in this moment comes back and bites you later. Uncle Ben dies, kind of thing. And then it's just kind of like, no, that wasn't it. Same with like the woman with the Eastern European accent at the bar in
the
Moon Lounge. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's going to come back around.
Like, how do I get...
And like it just kind of happens.
As a hero story, it's not a very good hero story.
Yeah, like I mean, it just kind of reminds me of like a lot of comics and stories that I spent a lot of time around like writers growing up and like aspiring writers. I was an aspiring writer for some time as well. I just didn't really think I was good enough to go full time with it. Yeah. But a lot of writers who kind of have these sort of self-insert characters as the protagonist, in which it's kind of like you're expected to like the character because it's them.
Yeah.
But there's not really anything that compels me to enjoy it. The best moments on this record like are absolutely when he just gets off like he's always been good at, you know, when the rapping is fucking tight. And I still think that there is a cohesive and relatively interesting concept EP that you could hack out of this in the editing room.
Word. I think for all of the kind of effort and ambition that he put into it, it falls just a little bit short of the vision.
Yes.
And but like, like
if there was a visual component, maybe there's a comic I need to read that like would accompany this that would make me feel more positively about it, but it does feel like something is missing from the formula here.
Yeah. Like, listen to this beat. Like, for a comic, like, this beat is crazy. And I think he did all of the production.
I think it's all self-produced. Yep.
It's amazing for that.
The soundscapes on all the voice-acted sections are wonderful.
Yeah.
The whole thing sounds great. If this had even just been like a side A, side B type deal, like Trick Dice was, where it's like you have these instrumentals coming in and out that turn into tracks.
Yeah.
I think I would enjoy it more, quite a lot more.
This shit is fucking ill. Like, listen to that. Like,
the beat's hard.
Like,
I was hurt. I was in pain, calling out for help. No one cared.
I don't even know what that is, but it's fucking ill. Like, the thing that bothers me is that there's so many dope moments on this album that are just clouded by other things that I didn't appreciate. But see, 2 minutes in, and then it's like a minute and 20 seconds of
with no luck.
I can't play this over. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm a repeat player type of, like, I like to repeat tracks, and I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Nickelus F, huge fan, love him as an artist. A lot of it disappointed, not in the work that he did, but just how I feel about it. Obviously, this is just our fucking opinion. But
yeah, if you're a very specific, to be fair, like, if I can shift gears a little bit, I feel very detached from black nerd circles because the nerdy black stuff I like is pretty detached from the Marvel,
I've never been a blurred. I've never called myself a blurred
side of things.
Yeah.
But I think that if that is your lane, this is like pretty cool. Having like a concept album that is a narrative, with a beginning and a middle and kind of an ending, although it, obviously leaves this kind of cliffhanger for issue 1, I assume. And I really, I think there is space for this. I would recommend this album to people who liked Metal Gear Solid 4 a lot, except without the avant-gardeness of Metal Gear Solid 4, but a lot of cutscenes.
Word.
A lot of cutscenes, not much gameplay.
Word. I mean, I would recommend this album to people that like Deltron 3030, Vigilante Genesis by Blueprint, which is also another comic book joint. People who enjoyed A Prince Amongst Thieves, even that Killer Priest joint that I was talking about, the 3 Fantastic Superman epics. It's basically, it's him telling the stories, but he narrates it all the way through with raps and kind of brings you through with sound effects and stuff. And it's just a different example.
It's like I don't know if this is the right word, the right use of this word, but in the Killer Priest joint, it's like a diegetic narrative. Like the narrative is Killer Priest is delivering that narrative from the rapped perspective. It doesn't pull aside and say, and then F went outside to smoke a cigarette and he thought about how bad he felt for ignoring that woman. And it's like, you could have put that in the song, I want to follow your feelings and
but you should expect a message from headquarters.
Actions over the last
I hope the next one is more rapping and less narrative. Even if it's rapping the exposition, like, I'm fine. Well, like, I don't know.
I would also outside
features.
of sorry, go ahead.
Rap features. Why don't you have
features.
a rapper lady doing the scorned woman part?
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
little back
Yeah.
and forth. Like not a song I cared for, but you know that We Cry Together Kendrick Lamar joint where you got the back and forth like fight.
I definitely don't want to hear anything about that.
I do not care for that song, but like I do think that is a more interesting application of that concept where it's like, okay, you know, have a battle like that. That's cool. Yeah, I would just like to see this done in a more kind of concise and elegant way than what we got.
Yeah, word.
There's narrow escape.
Secret House.
As the
Yeah.
dust settles around
Yeah,
the
Secret
team
House.
of Specimen
We've
work to free
got a Patreon.
messages from the
Like,
Nickelus
subscribe, figure things out for yourself.
Injuries are minor.
Listen to form your own opinions. Obviously,
Form your own
Shit, like,
opinions.
what the fuck?
Listen to
Yeah,
Murder
what
of
are
the
you fucking
Universe
looking
by
about?
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. That's also a very narrative-heavy album that a lot of people didn't like the spoken passages of, but I think it's executed more cohesively than this.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be back. Patreon's right here. I don't know. When do you think the next time we're gonna get back together? Next Saturday?
Yeah, we
Maybe.
can do something Wednesday. I got
Okay,
time.
we
I got
might
a
have
week
an album
off.
or two.
So,
The new Arm & Hammer's coming out soon too, so we've got a.
we do buy
tactic.
diabetic test strips.
Yeah.
To say diegetic,
Yeah,
non-diegetic
diegetic.
music.
test strips. Yeah. So yeah, we'll be on that. The new Mike and Wiki Alchemist joint. We've got to do that.
We
one. We can
got
put that on the docket for Wednesday, maybe.
we got all kinds of stuff.
and
we're
then that
putting
way we won't have to come in next Saturday.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe,
yeah.
Maybe that'll
let's
work.
let's figure
we
that
might
out.
do that. But yeah, patrons, we like you guys.
Secret House.
Spend a whole day doing nothing.